What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Goin Rogue. I'm Ryan, and today we are nowhere real cool or special, just hanging out in the garage as it's cold as shit outside and we got to get some things done on the truck. Of course, Yami, she's here. She's just hanging out in her favorite spot. If I'm out in the garage, that's where she just likes to hang out. But anyways, a while back I made a walk around video here on my GMC Sierra Overland truck, and at the time it was just more of a 10-foot overview of it. I didn't really go too far into detail, and so I finally wanted to address some of the questions and comments I got about it. I know, I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've made a video. I just make these things for fun, so you know, sometimes life gets in the way and something's got to give. But anyways, we've got a new camera now, so I'm going to try to stay a little bit more consistent. I'm almost done with the Utah part 2 video, and then after that, everything, all the footage, all the trail footage will be looking and sounding a hell of a lot better. So yeah, so like I said, when I did that, it was just a quick overview. I didn't go too far into detail, but now that I'm starting to see kids, or guys I should say, building these trucks, I figured why not, you know, just kind of show what I've done and share some of the things I've learned, and maybe it will help somebody out with their build. So if you are planning on building up your GMT 900 for off-roading, or just wanted to ride better and perform better, I'm sure you'll learn something from this video. So let's get into it. So first, why don't I just go with a quick update on everything that's changed on the truck since I did the walk around the first time. So right off the bat, we got a new motor in it. She let go on me on top of Mosquito Pass. Unfortunately, it was like 230,000 miles, so I couldn't be too mad, but we'll go over that in a minute. Oh, big change. I'm pumped about this. We got long travel. Look at that. Oh yeah, she's riding like a dream now. Got a camber kit, King 3.0s. She's dialed. Coming right down the side here. I don't think those were on, these little lights. Obviously those just kind of help with navigating at night. Oh, and I built this roof rack. This is kind of like a Prinsu look-alike. It's all aluminum, stainless steel hardware. I use the T-slot and V-slot, or whatever you want to call it, T-tracks, whatever. It's the same shit that they use on all the other racks. Just for I just made it myself, so turned out really nice. I like that. It's got like 12 5/16 stainless bolts holding it into the roof, so I mean I can lean the thing against a tree. This thing is not going anywhere. But nothing here has changed really. And then coming around the back side, I did get this new, it's called Tire Gate, obviously for obvious reasons. Sorry, I'm not pulling the truck out of the garage because like I said, it's cold out. But that's pretty sweet. I just recently got a Iceco APL 55. That thing's awesome. You never really realize how big of a pain in the ass ice is until you don't have to deal with it no more. Obviously a little slider that it lives on here. I added all this lighting in here. So I've got 4 rock lights in the corners. Bam, bam, bam. There's one behind the fridge, but you can't see it right now. Those are RGB, and then this guy, this light strip, it just goes red and white. So that's, and then all those lights kind of, you know, control or are controlled by this switch panel I mounted here. This was an old waterproof box that I had. and then I just kind of flipped it on its side and mounted a switch panel in there. So that's all watertight, locks down like that. One thing, like I said, is another good thing I added is a water tank, and you'll see the hose runs through to here to my sweet little water faucet. It's just battery powered. You charge it up like once a week. It seems to work for quite some time, but that thing is awesome, and it was only like 20 bucks. But one con to putting on the tire gate was that I lost my tailgate, which I use as my table pretty much 95% of the time, so that sucks. So I made this aluminum one. I'm not going to do it, but it flips out, and then it locks into this little channel right in here, and it's the same length as the tailgate, so that's how I got around that. And nothing really underneath back here has changed. Nothing here has changed. Inside the truck, the only real updates we've done is got rid of that flimsy, floppy old pantry that I had and swapped it out for this nice DeWalt setup here. This thing's pretty nice, but a lot more rigid. Ain't shaking around on the trail too much anymore. So electrical, we updated the 750 watt inverter to a 1200 watt pure sine wave inverter because my computers were getting like overheated from the other one. So if you got computers and sensitive electronics, you need a pure sine wave. It will work. Like your computers and stuff will work on a modified sine wave, I found out, but you'll feel your little power brick and everything just getting super hot, and it fried one of mine, and so that's why I wanted to get that swapped out. And then we also added WeBoost right here. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, I got Starlink now. Starlink is mounted up here on the roof, so that is nice. The WeBoost antenna is on this adjustable mount right here, even though it broke already. And I screwed the paper towel holder here. So I think that's everything as far as as far as updates on the outside of the vehicle goes. So let's just get right into, you know, the powertrain and what's under the hood. Up front too, I forgot to add, we added these hood louvers too. This is new. Forgot to say that. Okay, so like I was saying, this is a new motor, a rebuilt motor. The other one, after 230 something odd thousand miles, decided to eat a valve spring on the top of Mosquito Pass. So I know I said I was going to go with the 6.2, but the engine builder and a couple other friends suggested that I stick with the 5.3 because I just wanted something that was just a workhorse and reliable. So that's what we went with. So it's just a mildly built 5.3. It's Gen 4 aluminum block. It was bored 20 over. We shaved the heads 20. Flat top pistons. BTR truck torque cam. Morel lifters. King bearings. It's a balanced rotating assembly. Just a stout, reliable build. Nothing crazy. I don't need anything. I mean, it makes enough power, so I don't need to really. I didn't want anything crazy. Just something that was gonna run. So as far as now engine bay mods, we'll just start right at the far side of the motor, and we'll just kind of work across here. So over on the left side here, that is the main power switch for the auxiliary power system in the back seat, you know, that runs all the camping stuff. Right next to it here, you'll see we have, this is just a fuse panel that runs the ditch lights and things, just mounted to the back of the firewall right here, sitting right next to it. Here is your I think it was the transmission breather, transfer case, differential, or yeah. Anyways, I moved mine up. You should too. If you're going to be driving through deep water, then you need to move them. They're sitting right on top of your transmission. You'll find them kind of right in between the tunnel and the transmission. It's not that quite easy to get to. I did it while the motor was out, so it was pretty easy, but I'm pretty sure you could get to them if you just kind of lay underneath the truck and reach up. I know you can find this one on the side. The other ones, they were a little bit further back, so, but you should address that. Coming around the back side here, here's how I set up my catch can. These things, if you know about these 5.3s or the LSs, they need a catch can, or they like to drink their own shit, basically. I did something a little extra. So the factory pickup for the catch can or your PCV system is on the very back of the valve cover. I added a second port to it and then wired them together. You'll see in the back there's a Y fitting. So the problem was that when I was climbing up steep hills, that it seemed like oil would just kind of back up against the back of the valve cover, and it would start to drink quite a bit of oil right into the catch can. So I added this second one because in theory, air goes to the path of least resistance, so when the back one would be submerged in oil, it should start sucking vacuum through this one, which would be clear at that time. So that's what I did. I don't know if it quite works. I haven't really pushed the truck that hard since then, so I don't know. We'll find out. Moving right along on this side, I did relocate my ECU from the factory. They're down in this hole about a foot lower from the factory, and I mounted it to, as you can see, this it's just an aluminum sheet metal panel that I've kind of bent up, and that gave me this cool little storage area, and that was cool. So the added bonus, you know. Of course, this, as you can see, truck's got a cold air intake. I just wrapped it before to try to keep intake air temperatures down. That was the idea, but that was kind of more in a past life when this truck was more of just a street queen. One of the things I want to do in the near future is add some sort of a snorkel and maybe route it through the fender. But I've got some work to do with the fenders coming up anyway, so I'll address that when I get to it. Okay, and last but not least, I just wanted to show you guys, because some people have asked, but I'm not taking it out today. It's a whole nother video, but that's where my winch is way down in here. As you can see, it's shoehorned below the radiator shroud, and yeah, it's in there, but she's snug. Here's a view from the bottom side. So it's mounted using it was a Harbor Freight universal plate that I had to cut and modify a little bit. These bolts really are just there to help you get them in, or get the whole thing in. But it's bolted through the frame, through the plate, and that's how it's held in there. It actually has two fair leads. There's one on the plate and that kind of just guides it out to the main fair lead out here on the skid plate. So that's how I did that. And then the power cable, as you'll see over here, that red and black cable right here, and there's the gray Anderson plug. I mount that to the, I guess, the air box right here. It's screwed in there. And then I just have this plug that's kind of hanging loose that's directly connected to the battery that I use to be able to disconnect it from power. I use a remote control for my winch, so while I'm driving cross country, there's no reason for it to be plugged in, because I've heard of horror stories of you know, driving past somebody and somehow the thing getting interference, the winch kicking on when it's already locked up to your tow hook or whatever, and you know, starting a barbecue. So I'd like to keep my truck around and not have it catch fire, so that's just what I did as a precaution. So that brings us to probably one of the biggest questions I get about this truck is in regards to the cooling system, both with the engine and transmission. The engine's, you know, it's a reliable power plant, but you know, like anything, it's not perfect, and off-roading puts a lot of stress on things. So here, you know, and I have had issues, so here's how I have dealt with it. So for starters, at least for when it comes to the engine side of things, I added these hood louvers. These are from Track Spec. I think they look pretty good. They fit the shape of the hood pretty well. As you can see, they have evacuate a lot of heat and really kind of just help guide airflow through the radiator and get it out of there. And it's brought the engine temps probably down, or the engine bay temps probably to no more than, like, I'd say 20 degrees over ambient anymore. So that's really helped. I changed the thermostat out to a 180 degree thermostat. And then I added a 25 row oil cooler, which you'll see right in here. I know it's really hard to see. I'm trying to light it up the best I can for you. But the oil cooler is sitting right there behind the grill. And that combination has seemed to really help get the heat out of the truck, and I haven't had an issue since. So as far as the trans side of things goes, I didn't set it up like this. The trans guy did when I had it rebuilt, but it has worked phenomenally. So this is what he did was, first he removed or bypassed the thermal bypass valve that's on the transmission, bypassed the trans cooler that's in the radiator, and then went to two Hayden 40K or 50K trans coolers, and he mounted those right to the condenser, as you can see here. It's kind of tough to see, but you can see the side tube of the first cooler right there, and then it ends back over in here, and then it transfers in a little tube to the second one, cools down, and then returns back to the transmission. This has worked really good. One of the smart things about doing it like this is that when the cooling fans turn on, it's always drawing air right through the transmission coolers without adding another fan, more electrical draw, or any complexity to the system. So I thought that was a really good idea. So the thermal bypass valve is basically just a thermostat for your transmission, and waits till it gets already hot before it starts to send it to the cooler. And so you can get a bypass kit or the kit to remove it for like about $100 online. GM does that just for faster warm-up times and engine or driveline efficiency. So there's really no downsides except for the fact that you need to let the truck warm up a little bit, but it doesn't hurt anything. And then he also gave me a little snippet of knowledge, is at least with this body style truck, if you do see your gauge starting to get into the red, you start overheating, click max AC, full cold, recirc mode, all that, max AC. You're going to hear your cooling fans kick on to high heaven and then turn it right back off. Those cooling fans will stay on until the engine gets cold or back to a safe level again. It's worked for me. It saved my ass a couple times, so that was a great piece of advice. But overall, the whole cooling system, how he did it, seems to work great. Like I said, trans temps are about 130, 140, so that's working well. So that's about all I can really say about the engine and the front of the truck. So let's just keep on moving right over to the front suspension, where I get some of the most questions about. Like I said, I just recently picked up a long travel kit. I got a killer deal on it, so I couldn't pass it up. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger, and I don't regret it one bit. And I got this thing like just a few days before we left on our last trip, so I just hurried up and threw it on there. I did film it, so soon there'll be a video on that of what I did get. It wasn't the best quality of filming, but I set up a camera, so that will be coming out shortly here. But anyways, this is a camber kit I'm getting right now. As you can see, it's sitting, but I get about 12 inches of travel out of this right now. I still have to do some trimming on the fender because there is still some up travel left. So when I do that, I'm hoping that I get around 14 inches. The whole kit is, let me get you around the front here, the whole kit is 2.5 inches wider than stock per side. Of course, as you can see, those are some King 3.0 coilovers with reservoirs and adjusters. They're even the finned reservoirs, so race truck. But I'm super pumped about it. I had to make my own tie rods, and these are it's Heim steering now. So I got 3/4 inch Heims, and I made the tie rod itself out of aluminum just to cut down on some unsprung weight. I also used the Dirt King camber adjusters, so those have little holes in there, so big bumps aren't gonna knock it out of whack so easy. And the tie rods were also adapted onto the factory steering rack using the Dirt King adapters. So that's how I did that, and I'll tell you what, I love it. It rides so good now through some really rough stuff, and if you're not paying attention and a bump kind of surprises you, it just soaks it up and takes care of you. But I'm sure most of you really wanted to get some information on how the truck, the old setup was, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with the old setup. It worked great. Like I said, I just got a good deal on it, so I had to jump on it. But I've got you guys covered. I saved all the old suspension, and so I'm going to show you everything, how I had it all set up. And yeah, so first I'm going to show you, just kind of go over the parts and stuff that I used again, and then kind of explain some of the things and give you a few tips on the suspension that I think are they're key things that you need to do to get these to act right. So here we go. So I saved the parts for you guys, and I've laid them out here just like you would be seeing on the truck. This would be the passenger side, and then if you can use your imagination, the upper control arm would be sitting right about here. Again, I had no complaints with this setup. I was completely satisfied. I was getting about 9 inches of travel with my 305 tire, and I think from the factory there's only like 5 or 6 stock. So these are Fox 2.0s. This was a awesome purchase. I think is a great value for an entry-level performance shock. They were worth every penny, and this completely transformed the way the truck rode. I would highly recommend those. I did have them spaced a little bit. I have a 1/4-inch spacer on the top and a 1/4-inch spacer down here. That's not to lift the truck. That was to kind of adjust the range of travel of the wheel, because at full bump, the tires were hitting the top of the fender, and so I was losing some travel there. So I shimmed it down just that 1/2 inch to make up for that, to take full advantage of the full range of motion of the shock. My lower control arms, these are Mevotech TTX, and those have held up great. I've tried all the other brands, and they all seem to be wearing out nowadays super fast. These have held up well. I do have them painted silver because from the factory they come with this like ugly color epoxy coating to kind of resist rust, but so I just painted over that, so that's why they would look a little different if you were looking for them. My tie rods, I've been using these PPE, or Pacific Performance Engineering. These are their HD tie rod kit, and these are a must buy. With these trucks, the factory steering is just weak. If you're going to go off the pavement with it, you need to do something with this, and these have held up for years now, and I can't say good enough. And I've tried all the other brands, with the one that starts with M, the one that starts with K, and they've got great marketing but not such a great product. So if I had to give a recommendation, it would be these PPE ones. I mean, they got a 3/4 inch shank here. The inner tie rod is greasable, adjustable. Yeah, they're sweet. Upper control arms. I know I've heard bad things about Rough Country. I guess you can say what you want about them, but this has been a great product. It has lived through many trips, and these upper control arms are still stiff. Like, I mean, I still can't move this thing with my hand. I mean, barely, but they're good. I would highly recommend those. And then with this suspension setup, you are obviously going to have a lot more wheel travel, and you're flirting with disaster with the factory ones. So a great replacement that I have found are these from Track Motive. These are extended travel, high articulation CV axles. So these actually have a constant velocity joint on the outer and the inner, and all the extension is done with this center slip joint. Unlike on a stock one, they use a dog bone style on the inner, which is where all the sliding comes in, and they're both prone to failure, and these seem to hold up. And these will take, I believe it was 43 or 45 degrees of angle, and the factory ones are at like 23 to 25. So big improvement there. The last thing that you will notice, and I get questions about, is people see that I use these limit straps, which you're going to need to do if you're going to try to get 9 inches of travel. You need to have these. So how I mounted the lower one is with a bracket. Again, this is from the other side, so this is a mirror image. But this is just 2 pieces of steel that I welded together in a 90-degree angle, and then mounted, or welded I should say, a limit strap clevis. I just cut it off. You can still see the old threads on there if it'll focus. But yeah, welded that on there. It's mounted to the lower control arm using the same bolts that you would mount your shock with. As a side note, for safety, I would recommend getting longer bolts and putting a nut on the top as well. So your limit strap will run right on the front side of the shock. Remember, the front of the vehicle would be on this side. So the limit strap will be sitting just like this, and I'll show you where you're going to pass through this upper clevis mount. So what you're going to want to do is drill a hole in the top of your strut tower. From the top side, you're going to have to do it. Your limit strap is going to be sitting right in here. So you're going to have to remember too, I have to make new strap mounts now with these shocks, but before, remember these are King 3.0, so they're much beefier, so there's not as much room anymore. But if you're using a different style or another brand shock, I guarantee you there'll be room. But you're going to drill the hole for that clevis mount right here. So if you'll see down on my strut tower, I've got a little hole drilled right there. It's right on the, there's like a flat section on the top of your strut tower, and it comes to like a corner kind of right here. I drilled that hole right on the inside of kind of the radius of that ridge line, I'm going to call it, and that is where you pass through your limit strap clevis. So you'll have this sticking above the strut tower. I'd put a few washers there and make that hole slightly bigger than the actual clevis, because you want it to be able to kind of float around and not bind. I have found the ideal size of limit strap would be I think a 13. The 14s work, 12s work, but you're at one end of your adjustment or the other. And then the last part of the puzzle for doing this is you need to cut off the factory limit stop. Right here there's a big finger that sticks out right here, steel knob. You're going to need to cut that off. That is what obviously limits your travel from the factory, and is the reason that your upper ball joints and stuff get just destroyed really quickly, especially if you have strut spacers. That's what eats them up constantly. So you got to get rid of that. And then don't forget, you got to adjust your limit straps accordingly. You're going to probably have to take your strut out and kind of cycle everything to make sure that your tie rods, your CV joints, and your ball joints aren't going to be topping out to their limits. But like I said, this is how I've gotten 9 inches of travel with the factory length A-arms, and it has worked. It's held up. I've driven this truck all across the country. So that's my recommendations if you're trying to really improve the ride quality and capability of the truck. And since I went over the front end with you, I might as well have a little refresher over the rear. So the rear of the truck has not changed since the video. We still have Fox 2.0s right there. I do have the add-a-leaf kit. This is from Zone Off-Road. I think it's this leaf right here is added in. And then like I said before, I also did the, I don't know what you want to call it exactly, but I have U-bolts holding my axle on instead of that big weird shaped plate that's normally on the bottom side of your axle right there. So I did that, and again, I got the differential guard from Purple Cranium Designs. And that's pretty much it back there. So after now putting on the long travel, now I've got to do something with the rear end. I'm not quite sure what I want to do or how wild I want to get, because I also got to remember I got a lot of stuff to put in the bed. And possibly maybe one day I would like to get a slide-in camper or a go-fast camper or something. So I don't mind popping some shocks through the bed, but I'd like to keep them inside of the line where the wheel well is, so that you could still fit, let's say, a 48-inch board across the center. All of the bed cages that I've found for these intrude in past the bed rails, which I understand why they do, but I don't know, I'm gonna have to probably come up with something custom so I can mount shocks on the outside of my springs and have them kind of inside of the bed right here is kind of my idea, but I got to figure that out. So yeah, that's my plan for that. And last thing to go over again that I get some questions about is like my bumpers and skid plates and stuff. So let me show you that real quick. Again, this is just a factory rear bumper that has been cut. You can see how I sliced the front end right here on the corner. I added these 3-inch light pockets for the lights. And then there's my skid plate. This front skid plate is actually 5/16 aluminum. And that's what I did with that guy. And that leads all the way to the back, pretty much to the gas tank now. So as you can see, I've got one from the front cross member to the middle one, covering the transmission belly, or the transmission pan, and then the gas tank and transfer case back there. So we'll move around to the side so I can show you that. A little bit of a better view. So again, there's the one protecting the transmission pan. I just used flathead Allens and drilled and tapped the frame, the bottom of the frame, to screw those in. You can kind of see them right here. And then when I got back to here, I ran out of aluminum. This is just a piece of HUMP or whatever. So that's what I use for that. And then also back to the gas tank, as you can see right there, covering that. I do have a plan to kind of upgrade the transfer case one. I've been in the works of making a different kind of skid plate. This is kind of like a cage for it. So the transfer case actually would be sitting right about in this little spot. But before I started to finish weld it, I had changed my mind about some things. So, and then here's how I did my rock sliders. People have asked about these. This was just a quick bang up job I did before I left for Moab. But anyways, I used 2x4 steel. You see I kind of got an angled cut right here in the front. This tube is sitting at I think like a 10-degree angle or something, 10 or 15-degree angle. I want to update them for one because there is only actually 2 points of contact on the frame with these. I didn't plan on this truck being a rock bouncer or anything. It's basically just there for the oopsies, which it's protected. As you can see, they've taken some hits. I mean, they haven't really went anywhere. They kind of bent into the body itself, but I mean, who cares? It protected it from any crushing. So that's how I did my rock sliders. Yeah, just real quick, is straight off the frame, you can see that they are first welded into a 1/4-inch support plate, and that is welded to the frame. Came straight out to a 15-degree turn right there up into the main rail, and I wanted them really nice and tight to the door. When you open the door, there's literally just enough room to get the door to open. So I didn't want them eating into any of my clearance, so that's how I did that. And now for the rear bumper, again, this was made in great haste. This is all 2x4 steel. Right here you can see there is a 2x4 steel sitting vertical on edge, and then this one is sitting flat like that. The main bars coming off of the frame was a piece of 1/4-inch right here. So it's 1/4-inch, it comes back, and then everything is welded into the 2 pieces of 1/4. And then my trailer hitch, as you can see right here, it's welded into the bumper portion, and then I went back to this extra rail right here, which uses the old hitch mount bolts. So the actual hitch is through two cross members, basically that guy and then the whole front bumper. So this bumper is not going anywhere. There's like 12 different, I think 12 bolts holding that thing into the frame, so it's solid. It's not going anywhere. You're going to bend the frame before that moves. I think that covers it. Pretty sure that covers all the questions that I've gotten. Like I said, we got some new camera gear and stuff, so all the videos going to be coming out after the Utah part 2 video are going to look a lot better and sound better. We got all sorts of new camera gear, and yeah, but if you guys got any other questions about this truck or need any help with building this platform, let me know. I'd be glad to help you out, and I hope I see you out on the trail. Hope you get that thing built. I'll see you on the next one, guys.